So after all the insanity of all the cards that got reprinted in the Legendary Collection Kaiba, and wondering what other big reprints could come along our way, I started noticing that I was thinking about reprints a lot lately. And I've been thinking about what cards I wish would get another printing, or cards that maybe get too many reprints, or cards that don't get enough, and that's where I came up for the idea for this list, my top 10 cards that should be reprinted once a year. Now I know that might be a controversial opinion for some, but in my opinion, the cards you will see on this list are things that we desperately need as players. These are cards that everyone should have at least one of, if not playsets, and these are cards that every player has used at least once since they've been out. And because of this, I think that they deserve to get additional printings because not everyone can spend a lot for these cards. So these are things that I think should have a lot more easy access to. Maybe you'll disagree with this list, maybe you'll agree. You'll have to keep watching to find out. And without further ado, let's get started. Coming in number 10 is a weird choice. I know Daigusto Emerald is banned, but this card could come back at any time, considering we just got Judgment and Reborn back. Also, I think this card was unfairly banned, considering they nerfed Zoo on that ban list anyways, the deck that was really making this card degenerate. And just on top of that, I think this is a really good card for everybody. The ability to recycle monsters in favor of getting a draw, being part of the rank 4 toolbox. Daigusto Emerald is a card everyone should have access to, but even though it had been reprinted 2 or 3 times, it still had like a $10 to $15 price tag for its cheapest printing. That is crazy. And in my opinion, this is a card that should definitely get a new, preferably new rarity each year. Because, well, everyone needs it. Everyone plays level 4s, so I think it's definitely something everyone should have, and, well, it's been a long time since this thing got printed, and I'm sure it would get a reprint if it gets unbanned, but I kind of want that guarantee it won't shoot back up to $10 or $20 again. And number 9 is a weird choice for some, but I do feel Pot of Desires is a card everyone should have access to. Why? Because the direction the game seems to be going on is decks that can brick, decks that can end up with awkward hands. So everyone needs to have draw power. And well, considering we can't have Pot of Greed back or any other generic draw cards, this is our best bet for right now. So therefore, I think Desire should always be available to everyone. Now, this is a controversial card for some, but I also like the fact that this card actually sort of helps people learn to think more. Contrary to popular belief and what a lot of big-name Yu-Gi tubers will tell you, you do have to be careful when you activate this card. Though you're not likely to banish all your best combo pieces, you can lose a lot of good utility when you use this card. So learning how to use this card is a great way to learn about resource management and keeping track of what's in your deck, so I think it's a really good card for anyone at any point. For the choice of spell and trap removal, this was kind of a complicated one. I do think as a whole, all our major spell and trap removal based cards should get a reprint fairly often, but if I had to pick the one for the list, I'm going to go with Cosmic Cyclone. I think Mystical Space Typhoon is still good for anyone who just needs in general removal, and is probably better than this, but Cosmic Cyclone's ability to banish fits in perfectly with dealing with things like Pendulums and True Draco, and seeing as it looks like we're going to keep getting stuff that deals with spell and traps in the grave, I think this is a good card for everyone to have, and a functional spell and trap removal option for everyone to use. Choosing a synchro was really hard, as most synchros kind of just fit in their own specific decks, but PSY-Framelord Omega is one that everyone can use, and an important one here in Master Rule 4. Seeing as its effect allows it to end up anywhere once it comes back on the standby phase, it's very good for being able to get strong board presence while not losing your link zones, as well as being able to remove key combo pieces from your opponent's hand, but at the cost of you still losing a big monster. Remember, it doesn't take a lot to be explosive nowadays. Even though it does take several combo pieces for every deck, a lot can still be done with the right card, and having the option to save yourself a turn when your opponent draws right is really important, and something every player needs to learn how to play with. Number 6 is a weird choice, seeing as this card really hasn't been out for too long, so it's hard to say what its overall impact in the meta was, but if I had to pick a Link monster that needs a usual reprint, I'm going to go with Ningirsu. Why? Because, well, it's the Scrap Dragon or the Ignister of this era. It's easy to use removal for every deck, and considering we all gotta play Link monsters, it's pretty easy to splash into anything. Plus, having sideways Link markers is very good. I think this is a card that is a great card for just people to use for its utility, its power, its ability for removal, and everyone should be able to use it and have access to it. I was also considering Ebe for the list, but I decided to go with the heavy hitter. Coming in number 5 is our representative for board wipes, or one of them, we'll see a little bit later. But Raigeki, to me, is a card that went way too long between its last printing and this printing. When was its last printing? The Joey Legendary Collection, I think? I don't even know the names of these things. Raigeki is really important. Board wipes are important. I think they're fine at 1, but everyone should have a Raigeki and a Dark Hole for dealing with boards. And you do need to be smart about when you play it, as so many things go off in the grave now. But everyone should have access to it, and considering how rarely this card does seem to get printed, it can be tough sometimes when you're not able to fight back against a huge board or have your own option to blow a board up. So this is a card that, well, everyone needs to get. At 1, preferably. Solemn Judgment is a card that has just recently come off the ban list, and even though many people debate its functionality and use, it is a card everyone should use. Having the ability to negate anything can be very important, especially for fragile glass cannon decks like my beloved World Chalice. And I think Judgment is a very good removal option for everyone to use, seeing as, well, kind of like with Desires, you need to think about when you use it. Losing half your life points can be a very big deal, especially with huge hitter decks like Pendulum Magician and Mech Knight Invoked out there. It's a card everyone should use, and it hasn't been printed in a long time. I don't think it was in the Kaiba thing, and I can't be bothered to check. So, yeah, we need a reprint of this thing pretty soon. Also coming off the most recent ban list is Monster Reborn, which is a card that needs to get printed. Monster Reborn has had a lot of printings over the years, but this is such a good card for anything that actually isn't, well, Pendulum Magician, or even Mech Knight Invoked, I think don't play it, and 60 card probably don't need it, but for other decks, it's important. Being able to get anything back to the graveyard, any sort of resource, that is very important, especially with Link monsters, where you'll need to get them back to terraform zones and go into more stuff. Because of this, I think everyone needs access to this card. Now, I know it did get reprinted recently. I think it was in the Kaiba thing and Duelist Saga last year, but, well, that's a good sign. Keep printing this thing. Also, I want an ultimate rare of the original art. Make it happen, Konami. So if I had to pick a hand trap that needs a yearly printing, even though Ghost Ogre is my favorite of the Ghost Lolly hand traps, I gotta go with Ash Blossom. Searching is one of the most key important parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! And being able to special summon from the deck is one of the most obnoxious things about modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Ash shuts all this down, and in our meta, which is a lot more faster and a lot more aggressive than the OCG, we need this card regularly available. Now, one of you may be saying, it just got reprinted. Well, yes, but then the reprint is super expensive, and the originals went back to about where they were. That's insane! I do like the fact it got reprinted in Kaiba Collection, but it won't be long before it needs another printing, just because, well, everyone's going to need this card. The era of hand traps might be on the decline and could end next format for all we know, but this card will still be there and we're all still going to need it. Number 1, this might piss a lot of people off, but Evenly Matched, I think, needs to get a reprinting once a year. Now, I'm not saying reprint it tomorrow. I don't think it needs to get a printing for a while. But what this card does, and what its impact can be, is something that I don't think should be simply held for the people who have too much money to spend. This card is currently, I think, like $75, or in that range. And, well, that's not very fair. So many powerful decks, like Pendulum Magician, 60 card, I mention those things a lot, but there are a lot of decks that a Raigeki kind of doesn't really do a lot to. Why? Because, well, stuff goes off in the grave. Pendulum monsters can come back the next turn. Evenly Matched deals with that. Evenly Matched kind of is our ultimate card for sort of evening out the game state. And it can be interesting seeing as they still get to keep one card, so the one card they keep can tell you a lot about their strategy. And on top of that, it's not like the card doesn't have certain limitations to it. Obviously, you can only activate it at the end of the battle phase. You can't really do anything with it if you have an established board. It creates interesting situations you and your opponent have to play around when they expect it's coming. And I think it's a card everyone should have access to. It's the most expensive card in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. And I think if it's like that for... This card came out... Shit, this card came out in November. So, yeah, it might be coming up for its reprint sooner rather than later, and, well, it's going to need it again, because unless they outright ban this thing, there will never be a point where evenly matched will not be a great card. And so that's why I think it needs to get reprinted. Same with everything else on this list. But what did you think? In the comment section below, tell me what you think about cards that need to get reprinted, cards that you don't think need to get reprinted, or anything else regarding reprints. And as always, click to like, click subscribe, and if you took a shot for every time I said reprint in this video, I apologize for your liver failure.